explore, to investigate the green practices of Chinese LSPs. When we're talking about China, in this paper, we are talking about mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, because we try to collect the data of those listed firms from the Greater China region. And we try to look at their characteristics, classification, and evolution. This is a study on the firm level. So we would like to know, okay, when we're talking about policies, right? You know, Chinese government has announced a lot of policies, but we would like to know what are the reaction from those firms, particularly logistics firms, what actually they have been doing, okay? So first of all, I think all of you in this room agree that we needed to do something to decarbonize logistics, right? And particularly the logistics industries in China actually contribute quite a lot to carbon emissions. Okay, so that's why we agree that, okay, this is very important, right? This is China CO2 emission. It goes steadily over years. And then, as I mentioned, there are so many policies in China, right? Announced by the central government of China. This is not a complete list of all those policies announced by the government, particularly after year 2015, right? We have a lot of policies at the central government level, and because we try to look at Hong Kong and Taiwan, one particular reason is that many LSPs in China actually got listed in Hong Kong stock market. They are not listed in Shanghai or Shenzhen. Okay, they just get listed in Hong Kong. That is a particular reason we try to include Hong Kong listed firms in our analysis. And you know, because there are also a number of Taiwanese firms, they actually have a lot of operations in Greater China region. So that's also why we try to look at the policies in Taiwan. Another particular reason is that, you know, the Chinese government actually try to follow similar policies operated by other countries and regions, particularly in Hong Kong and Taiwan. So we would like to know, okay, what are those influence from those policies? And when we're talking about the logistics, we know that there are different models, right? We're talking about road freight, particularly in this conference. And we are also talking about shipping, aviation, and so on. And particularly in China, I think there is a very good reason why road freight is so important, because the country is mainly known for large inland and less inland waterways to transport goods. So that's why road freight is so important. But the problem is that different modes of transport logistics may vary in their green practices. We believe so, but we don't see much discussion, particularly in the Chinese context. So we would like to know, okay, what are the differences of their practice? And then the problem is, how can we try to do that? Okay, so we think that is a very natural source of data to look at their reports from those listed companies, because the Chinese government and also the regulations in Taiwan and Hong Kong push those listed companies to announce what they have been doing and what they want to achieve in the near future in terms of decarbonization. Okay, so because there is no systematic investigation of those factors, so we just try to ask 3 questions. First, what are green practices characteristics, classifications, and evolution within Chinese LSPs? Question number 2, how do the foci of LSP's green practice vary across maritime, road, and aviation operation modes? And question number 3, what factors influence the priorities of green practices across different operation modes? How and why? Okay, So I feel a little bit over-ambitious, but we try to touch something here. And the research design is quite simple. First, we try to get all those information from their reports. We just collect all those CSR reports or sustainability reports announced by those listed firms. And then we try to do some kind of LDA topic modeling to do some kind of visualization to see, okay, what are those topics over the years from those companies? Because they are operating in different modes, right? And we just observe there are a number of topics frequently mentioned by those firms. And then we did some kind of interview with top executives in those firms to understand, okay, why they are doing such kind of things in the last few years and what they plan to do in the future. Doesn't happen. Sorry, it freeze. It's too cold here. Oh, thank you. Okay, so we collect a number of reports from different firms. Well, we actually had over 200 reports finally. And okay, that is an LDA model. I don't know much about that because it's done by PhD student. But anyway, that's a key point. Well, we try to do something to visualize our findings, and that is the so-called LDA results. We observe 18 topics, and quite interestingly, we try to use some color to differentiate them. Blue stands for maritime operations mode, and red for aviation, and white for general, right? Because all those firms in different, three sectors of logistics, they will do something in general, particularly about green practice related to management. So for example, maritime logistics firms talking about energy efficiency quite a lot because that is much related to their cost, right? It makes a lot of sense. And also they talk a lot about compliances with regulations. And aviation about energy efficiency as well, but mainly for aircraft. And because we are particularly interested in road freight, then we see a number of technology-driven factors in China. For example, new energy vehicles. There are more and more electric trucks, heavy or light, adopted in China. I think it's quite a different possibly here, right? And then, okay, another key topic about road freight is green packaging. It plays a very significant role in China. I don't know why, but that's why we did some kind of interview to understand why they pay so much attention to green packaging. And interestingly, there is another topic, it's called Arctic navigation, but that is related to maritime. They try to take a cut short across the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so those are the 18 topics observed from those CSR reports. So we have some kind of direct observations. First, green practices in the maritime logistics sectors are primarily about legal compliance and energy efficiency. And aviation actually pays much effort on cost, right? Energy efficiency. And then road freight sector in China pays much more on new energy vehicles and green packaging. So that's some overall ideas from this analysis. And then we try to look at the evolution side, what had been happening in the previous years and what are happening in the recent 2 years. We just try to look at all those so-called old topics before year 2017, right? And then after year 2017, we noticed a number of new topics. For example, internal green practices, external green practices, emerging green technologies like an EV or green packaging, on alternative fuels, energy efficiency improvement, and so on. Those actually are less touched before year 2017. So it seems to us that Chinese largest firms actually tried their best to follow the policy recommendations or requirements before year 2017. And then later, they tried to adopt some more active actions, not only to follow the recommendations from the government, they try to utilize some technology to enjoy possibly competitive advantages in the market. And we would like to do something to understand why there is such a trend. So we did some post-talk interviews. We just invited a number of top managers in Chinese firms to ask, okay, we observed this and that. Why you are doing such kind of things? What do you understand? Okay, so first, we observed that technological maturity actually is a very important factor. Just as Maya mentioned this morning, right? For example, electric vehicles didn't get attention from Chinese SPs before year 2017 because the technology is not that mature. But in the recent 1 or 2 years, more and more people are talking, not only talking about it, but they are trying to do more investment. We interviewed one director, one vice president and of road freight. And he just said, okay, they are going to buy 10,000 light electric trucks in the next few months. So this is actually a quite ambitious action, right? And also we observe that they care much, not only about technological issues, but also social factors. So we do observe there is a so-called social technical system perspective in Chinese LSPs. They try to somehow to not only to follow the policy recommendations, but also to follow the expectations from the society, because Chinese society actually has much higher pressure on those firms. So they try to have a good market image to say, okay, look, we are going to be greener in the future, okay? So they can have more maybe ESG investment and so on. And also, we observe that there are some kind of synergies between technology and social-driven green practices in Chinese LSPs. That is particularly a good reason why they are going to adopt green packaging. Because as the Chinese people are more aware about green issues, decarbonization, and so on. So it's kind of enable those firms to offer green packagings, to reuse those, to recycle those materials. Which is not possible before year 2017, right? If people are not going to cooperate with those LSPs, it's very hard for them to recycle everything. But now that is viable, and it also offer a very good opportunity for them to promote their social image. So we do think that, okay, there are some kind of synergies. And we also think that, okay, according to our simple analysis, we can find some manager implications. Maybe there could be a 3-stage pathway for green transitions for Chinese SFPs. We are not sure if that is applicable to European LSPs, but there could be one for Chinese LSPs. First, they are going to follow the regulatory requirements from the government. That is a must. And the Chinese government actually has been pushing those LSPs to be greener. Then step number 2, okay, they can start with efficiency improvement practices, because that is good for their cost reduction, that is good for their financial investment, and so on. And then, particularly for those leading firms, we think that maybe it's already a good opportunity for them to adopt some new technologies, like those light electric trucks in the near future, and possibly then heavy electric trucks in the future. But as we have discussed quite a lot, because there are not so many charging facilities in China, particularly for heavy trucks. It's still very not that mature in terms of technology infrastructure. So maybe they are still quite conservative in this part. Okay, so that's my report. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, it's my pleasure to have the Q&A session.
Thank you. Really interesting presentation. Phil Churchman from Leeds University. I was taken by your comment that in China, the LSPs are more influenced by public pressure, societal pressure. And I just was interested to understand why and how that pressure expressed itself.
Oh, it's a very good question. You know, somehow the Chinese government, they have some kind of different channels to collect all those feedback from the society. I don't think it's mainly on newspapers. It's mainly about those different levels of Congress at the national level, at the provincial level, and then at the city level. So the government would like to get those feedback and then to push those LSPs in China. And because of the central government is actually much aware about environmental issues in the recent 10 years. So that's why they also have a very dominating influence to somehow to change the public, the audience, their awareness. So once again, it's like a positive feedback because the government pays so much attention to this issue, and then the public actually will also pay much attention to it. And then finally, the government is going to reinforce it. And then finally, those firms in China, they had to have some kind of action or reaction. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Tom Sherratt from University of Southampton. Just about the kind of green packaging element, is that, I was just interested also, aside for consumers in terms of green packaging, but also in the logistics sector itself, are there initiatives the government is putting forward to enable suppliers, etc., to use collective packaging, totes, that type of thing? Are there any initiatives to cut down packaging waste within the supply chain as opposed to just on the consumer side?
Thank you so much. I think it's a very good question. That is also our initial understanding. Possibly supply chain factors play a significant role in this particular question about green packaging. But according to our interview, the customer side, the consumer side actually played a more significant role. Otherwise, it cannot explain why they didn't pay much attention to green packaging before year 2017, right? Because I think the supply chain actually played a very consistent role. If they can do more green packagings, sure, they can try to reduce some cost in purchasing, in recycling, and so on. But the real advantage actually comes from the consumer side. They would like to follow those recommendations to help to recycle all those facilities. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Henning Paulsson from Lund University in Sweden. So just a follow-up question on that, working a lot with packaging and packaging management. So when you talk about green packaging here, do they mainly talk about the material, or do they also consider like volume, weight, efficiency of packaging and those kind of things, which would also relate more to transport packaging and these other areas of not only the consumer package?
Thank you. It's also a very good question. We didn't do at that detailed level, but we asked all those managers. I think that you are right. One is about volume. Those LSPs, they try to use those lightweight materials to work as packaging materials. And the second is about recycling. Because of the boom of Chinese e-commerce, so there are so many papers for packaging everything, particularly for those parcels and so on. So it's really a must to find a way to recycle those paper. So that's why recycling actually is the most important factor in China. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I think we should move on to the next presentation. Okay. So which is our next one? Oh, it's online again.